a Sunday, if they were gonna be here or not. Oh, on the 20th, so the 21st.
All right, there we go. A little lost in it, but it'll be all right.
I wanna say they leave on the 6th.
Hey,
Maybe they leave, go down.
Josh, do you mind checking that camera? It looks like that camera 1's out of focus. If you want to put it on camera 2, that's fine.
But I'm not 100% sure.
It may just be the computer.
Yeah, that one, Margaritaville.
Oh, wow. I took the fantasy a few years ago. If that one's still floating.
They found her, this is our piano player, song leader, they, found a thing.
All good?
He's
Okay.
military.
Okay, all good?
The son-in-law's military.
Yeah, we're live.
Absolutely.
That one's the one that's the one I'm trying to update. It's been giving us problems. Okay.
And my license,
Oh, hey, lady.
believe me,
Y'all had a day too?
I asked for a discount every running.
All right, absolutely, you should.
I'm not shy to ask.
No, you should, because he carries his teacher ID around, so he gets discounts a lot of places.
What's up, man? All right, good to see everybody tonight. We're finally, the updates came through. If I can stop the robocalls from coming through all the time, we'll be good. Already quitting, huh? Don't forget, this Sunday, right after service, I think we got our Thanksgiving meal for the church. Also, keep praying for, we made mention in our group me, for Adam Maurer. He's out of ICU in another room. Planning on going by and seeing him in the morning before Miss Amy's surgery. Remember her as well. Just keep those people in your prayers. And Tim said, good thing you got moved to full time and everything. So that's going to change your schedule a little bit. So be here when you can on Wednesdays and stuff. Hopefully not upsetting your life too much. But hey, if you got to work, you got to work. That's how it is. So. And everything. So my voice sounds like it's raspy, but I'm a little tired after today. It's been a long day, but nonetheless, good to be here this evening. We are going to wrap up with Daniel tonight, just the man Daniel. In the first 6 chapters of Daniel, go through kind of a historical aspect of him, along with not just Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Ashiel, and Mishael, but there were other children from Judah there. Those were just the 4 that were mentioned. And Daniel, again, he's gone through, this will be the 3rd king that he will be going through, Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, and then we looked at last week Belshazzar's demise, his fall, with Darius the Mede taking over. This is now going to be at the end of Daniel's life. This is going to be, he is not a child anymore. This is definitely towards the end. And this is where the book is kind of divided into 2 separate sections, where the first 6 are basically, I don't want to say a biography, but along those lines is what it would be. But then chapter 7 is going to be more where we start getting into his visions that he has. And those visions are indicated in chapter 7, verse 1, that during the time of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. So that's going to be later in his life as well. But Darius the Mede has taken over, and I'm not going to get into the historical arguments that people have over who this is, that it's not Darius the Great, that's going to be the Persian king. I don't think there ought to be confusion with that, because the Bible said he was a Mede and not a Persian. But we'll leave that alone and let those who want to delve deeper into those types of things that are there. But the kingdom was given to the Medes and the Persians, as we saw in Belshazzar's, I guess condemnation is the best way to put that the hand wrote on the wall, that the kingdom was divided and was given to the Medes and to the Persians. So again, leave that for another time. That's not our focus. But Daniel now is old or older. Some project his age to be anywhere between 75 to 80 years old, maybe even older than that at this time. And one of the things that we're going to see, even in his older age, I guess we should say, we don't call him old age, but he doesn't change who he is. And man, I tell you, there's something to be said for a person who is consistent. I would hope that I'm a little bit more, I guess seasoned is the right word, although last night at about 10:30, I was really seasoned with some hot pepper. Had a Miss Amy surgery and everything. I have to get a sub to cover for me and everything. I'm not going to leave my team to find people and leave them shorthanded and stuff. And I had one, and the sub turned it back in. I had it for like a week and a half whenever she found out she was going to get it. And that puts you in a crunch because you got to try to find somebody in 48 hours. And I tried everybody, and they're all working. Football teams leaving tomorrow to go down to Brunswick or something like that. So, and I think the sub is a mother of one of the football players and everything. She turned it back, and I was like, so I got to find somebody. And then I was looking to see, okay, can I leave school, take her over to the surgery, stay with her, then come back and get everything covered, just trying to do whatever I can to make all that happen and everything. And Ms. Dorsey came through. She is rumored to have a little pocket sub in her, a little secret pocket somewhere where she's got secret subs, and she found one for me this afternoon and everything, so we got that taken care of. Last night I reminded myself of when I was younger, and I was in my office, something, an email came through, and I just started talking, and Amy says, "Who are you talking to in there?" And I was like, "I'm talking to myself." There wasn't anybody in me. The dog wasn't even in there with me, and she goes, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, not really," because I was. I don't know if when y'all type an email, especially if it's one that's a heated one or something, or one that you're trying to, you don't want to hit send until you type, you sound it out and you hear it back in your voice. I never hit send on this one and everything, because as I was typing, I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And then as I read, I was like, no, that doesn't sound good and everything. Don't want to do that. That's just going to stoke the flame, stoke the fire. So Daniel's not that way. Daniel is somebody who is, again, we're going to see the words that are going to be used here in verse number 3 of chapter 6 is that he was preferred. And if we look closely at those words, that is not something that he did to gain it by money or popularity or who he was as far as his birth or anything along these lines. It's something that he distinguishes himself. He is doing things, or maybe not doing things, that are distinguishing himself amongst. And this time we're going to be given a little bit different words. We've seen him compared to the wise men, to the soothsayers, and to the magicians. Well, now he is going to be compared to presidents. And when we see that president, that's going to be more the term, not what you and I would think of, but more of an overseer. Probably somebody like what we position maybe in our government that we have, maybe like a cabinet member or something like that sees oversees a certain agency or something along those lines. But I want you to notice in verse number 1 of chapter 6 how Daniel, again, even in his older age, is distinguishing himself. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes. Okay, that's a big cabinet. We'll just call it what we're a little bit more used to now as far as that goes. And if you look up that word princes there, it's going to be an interesting word. It's going to be I don't even know if I've ever heard this word outside of the Bible, a satrap or a satrap. And it's simply a Babylonian word or a Chaldean word that's meant for a prince or somebody who's a governor, somebody who is a governor over a particular province. And I guess for us, we're not used to the word provinces here in the United States. Maybe Canada might be one where we would, it's along the lines of a state, a region that's being controlled in that. So there's 120 of these princes that he has set over, which should be over the whole kingdom. So he's divided his kingdom up, and you can imagine how large that is, divided up into 120 different provinces. And over these, he put 3 presidents, or he put 3 overseers over them. So he's got 120 princes, or this, if I'm saying that word right, satraps or satraps over them. Then there's 3 presidents over them. So you got Darius, you got 3, and then there's 120. And then Daniel, it says, was the first. Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. So basically, Daniel's running the show, lack of better words. He's taking care of the day-to-day operations. Call him a bureaucrat, I guess might be a word we'd use today, but I don't think Daniel would have the reputation of maybe perhaps of what some people think of bureaucrats in our language or in our type of things we have today. And when we look there in verse number 2, and the Bible says there that the princes give accounts unto them, they go through those 3 first before it gets to the king. When we say damage that the king should have no loss, they are not just overseeing the day-to-day operation, they're overseeing the king's wealth. They're overseeing his economy, if you will, in managing, I want to say his finances, because his empire is the finances. But the Bible says that this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes because an excellent spirit was in him. That same spirit that was in him as a young man is the same spirit that is in him now that is distinguishing. And the Bible says here in verse number 3, and the king thought to set him the whole realm. So basically the king is saying, hey, you do a better job at this than me, and this will free me up to go do whatever I want to do, and he'll still be the king. Imagine this, someone who was brought out as a child out of Judah as a, no better word, probably words that we could use here would be slaves or a conqueror or a tributary along those lines. And here he is now being thought by the king, who is now king, to be put over the whole realm. Yeah, the conquering king of the people that, happens here, like you just said, when they come in, they clean house. But there's something about Daniel that's different. And it's not, again, it's not his looks, it's not his money, it's not his wealth, it's not his fame, it's not his position, it's that spirit within him. That's what we see every single time. And that's something that we need to see there. We saw it back in Daniel chapter 5 in verse number 12, that, remember, it was Belshazzar's wife who said to him, there is a man in thy kingdom, verse number 11 of chapter 5, in whom there is the spirit of the holy gods. Now again, we're not dealing with the pantheology or the pantheism that they have. We know there to be one true God, but for them, they recognized him as, hey, there is something different about him. And he said he's in wisdom, like the wisdom of God was found in him, and said, hey, Nebuchadnezzar, your father used them, you use them. And so here comes Darius in, and no doubt Darius maybe even had, because the meats just didn't pop up on the scene. Like we said, all this is going on with Belshazzar in chapter number 5, and in the meantime, he's throwing this party, using all these vessels from the house of God in a blasphemous way, and an army just doesn't appear out of nowhere, especially back in these days. I mean, whether it be by foot, by whatever little water for transportation he might have had, rivers or whatever it may be. Of course, if you're familiar with the layout of Iraq or that area, that's where the old Babylon was going to be. There is some water travel there, but most of it's going to be by land, and this just doesn't happen overnight. This had been something that had been building. And no doubt, to be honest with you, I don't think it'd be a hard speculation to say Darius knew who Daniel was before this night. Especially if he's in his older age, and that with the politics and everything that's going on. But nonetheless, so when that happens, when the king is set to put him over, again, this reminds me of Joseph, what we're going to go through now, because verse number 4 says, the presidents and the princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom. And why is that? Because Darius is he is an outsider. I would probably submit to you, I don't think it'd be a far stretch, and Daniel's probably maybe one of one, as far as that's not a Mede or Persian or someone who is of that descent, definitely not of Judaism or of the Hebrews. And we definitely don't see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. wherever they're at, if they're even alive at this time, as Daniel is much older. They're not mentioned here as well. But look what they had here. What a testimony that you see in verse number 4. The presidents and the princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion nor fault. There is something to be said for Daniel in not just the climate, but who he is. Now, mind you, he is serving a foreign government. He is serving at the behest of as a conquered people, and yet he keeps getting elevated. But he has never sacrificed or compromised his faith. It is possible. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it is possible. You don't have to bend the knee. You don't have to, as his three, we'll call them brothers. They might have been because they all had king blood. That's why they were chosen. They had royal blood in them. But the other three said, hey, do what you want with your music. Our God may, you blow it, we're not bending. And if he doesn't save us, just let it be known. We're not changing who we are and what we do. You do not have to bend the knee. And if it means that there is loss, then you know what? Then there is loss. If it means that you lose position, power, wealth, whatever it may be, that never came into the place of what we see of these four individuals that we have looked at and studied over the last few weeks. Daniel is even now at 80 years old, and he still has not compromised. He still has not bent the knee. We're going to see later on, he still is praying to the same God, that the same God that made his nation to be conquered and go out. You want to talk about somebody who we looked at on Sunday morning when we talked about in everything give thanks? Daniel found himself, just like Joseph did, very similar to Samuel. And again, mark verse number 4, chapter number 6, because there aren't very many people in Scripture that it says that about. Okay, of course, we got the Lord. I mean, Jesus aside from all of that, but there are very few human beings that have this kind of testimony. And not only that, see, there was none occasion nor fault, for as much as he was faithful. And look what it says, neither was there any error or fault found in him. You say, what was he doing? You want to go and talk about what we were looking at on Sunday morning about those 14 things that are in 1 Thessalonians, those 7 things that are in 2 Peter? I believe Daniel was doing those things. And the Bible says in verse number 5, then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against Daniel. Wow. You and I, listen, I got some weaknesses. And my wife, can you just ask her and she can tell you what some of my weaknesses are. He's a sucker for that. Just do, and he may fall. Satan knows the snares are so easy, and they're out there for us, friend. Don't make no mistake. But he says, we shall not find occasion against this Daniel. You're not going to find it in his affairs with the government. But look what they say, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. And again, I say to you, verse number 5 is even more impressive than verse number 4. Because he has put the law of his God above the law of the kingdom. And you say, wait a minute here, are you advocating here that we do that in this country? Let me tell you something. I'm a law-abiding citizen as much as I can be. Okay? Sometimes it's by ignorance that I may break it and those types of things, and I'm all for law. I had a young lady, I was sharing with my wife a little situation in class, have tried to help her with some things she's had going on. She had to leave early, like 5 minutes early so she could go to work. They called her in or something like that, and I said, okay, go ahead and go. Well, she skipped my class on Monday. Only class I missed all day. And I go back and I check with the other teachers, was she in your class? Because maybe they didn't take attendance. When I see it that I'm the only class she missed, I emailed the other teachers and said, hey, was she in your class? They said, yeah, she was there. So she wasn't in my class. And she didn't check out. That's skipping. It's just plain and simple. I've got a duty as a teacher to report that because it's a safety issue. Because if parents were to call up there and they say, hey, where's my child? We didn't check her out and she's not in school. Why is somebody not doing something? So, and I did my job. And when she asked me, she came in the next day. I said, hey, where were you yesterday? She goes, I didn't come to school. I said, oh, so you mean you checked out or you weren't here all day? And she says, no, I didn't come all day. You know, just kind of smiled. I said, well, that's funny because your other teacher said you were here all day. And that smile just went just away real fast. And I, you know, did what I had to do. They gave her, it's probably her first offense ever. She probably thought, he likes me. He'll never do that. He'll never write me up or anything like that. No, I did. It doesn't matter who you are, what your name is, how much money you got, or what color your skin is, what color your hair is, what kind of clothes you're wearing. I'm going to do my job. And so she was kind of quiet today. She didn't say anything to me. She had a test to take too, so, and everything. But I'll take the opportunity to say, look, don't put me in that position. Because you're going to make me, I said, I like you as a person. You're funny to be around. We have good conversations. You make our class exciting. You'll bring a laugh and stuff like that. And it's always, you're never disrespectful. But don't put me in that situation because I'm going to do my job. And that's what they're saying here. We're going to have to put Daniel in a position to where he's going to have to choose between his God and this kingdom. And they knew, what a testimony that they knew that is what it would take. That's how strong and when they said he was faithful in verse number 4, I don't know that they're speaking about his faith in God. I think there's being talking about his faithfulness to the kingdom. Daniel being through all these years, never gone back to the promised land, and he's not gone back at any time, nor do what I say to you he had a desire to, because he stayed where he was. It wasn't he that has to go back and rebuild Jerusalem or rebuild the temple or the walls or anything else like that. It was Ezra. It was Nehemiah and those. And so Daniel is here, and he is in his place where God has put him, yet he has not sacrificed who he is and he has not compromised who God is to him. For you and me, when we look at verse number 6, then the presidents and the princes assembled together the king and said, thus unto him, King Darius live forever. Of course, I'm not going to read all of this just for sake of time tonight, but we know what's coming. What happens? Give me the synopsis. They come up with they come up with a law. They come up with a scheme. And listen, schemes and those types of things, that's another word used for wiles. Where do we have the word wiles in Scripture? The wiles of the devil. They're schemes is what they are. All right? If the devil is going to ensnare me, let him ensnare me with me choosing my God over this world. So be it. That is something that I will say, yes, I am not going to compromise for that. But if it be that I be ensnared because of some sinful thing, that is not a good testimony. Daniel is here. Now, the king obviously has Daniel and holds him in high regard, holds him in high favor. It's amazing to me that with all these things that are going on in both these kingdoms, both the Babylonian kingdom and in this kingdom here with the Medes at this time, that they don't worship that God. Nebuchadnezzar knew who God was, but definitely Belshazzar does it. Belshazzar has taken, as we looked at last week, took the things of God and just blasphemy, just straight up blasphemy. And they come in and they make a petition and say that they wanted a statute to make a firm decree that whosoever shall not ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days. In other words, you can't pray unto anybody for 30 days, save of thee, O king. And if he does, he's going to be cast into a den of lions. And when we look here, he says, now to establish a decree, sign the writing that it be not changed. What are they appealing to with this king? He doesn't what? His pride. Same thing Nebuchadnezzar did. Same thing Belshazzar did. And listen, that old saying, what is it? Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. We'll say that about Darius right here, but it is real. If someone comes up to me and says, hey, you sure do look good today, I'm going to say, okay, what do you want? Don't play games with me and stuff like that. Not doing that. Had a young lady the other day. They were at the group of table. That one young lady's there, and they were. I already heard their conversation because I'm walking around the room while they're working, and they were trying to get a quiz moved. I was like, yeah, we're not moving the quiz. I got to have it because we got a hard date coming up, and then this week's been chaos as far as the schedule goes. I said, guys, we can't move the quiz. We got to do it. And one of them, I walked by and says, hey, Coach Royce, I like your outfit today. You always color coordinate your stuff? Now, my wife will tell you right now, that might be one of the last things I'm thinking about when I leave the house in the morning, is am I color coordinated? If I happen to be, wonderful. I think today I did pretty good, though. My shoes are kind of got the green matching up with this. I kind of at least halfway match and that kind of stuff. I don't really, they said, you always wear bright colored shirts and stuff like that. She goes, that's pretty cool. I was like, what do you want, girls? Because that's not math questions. And they said, you think you can move the quiz? I was like, no, we're not moving the quiz. So I got to the heart of the matter right there. They're trying to appeal to my pride. They're trying to appeal to a sense of, hey, we can get him off task and then we can get him to change something. No. Like me or not, get a Christmas card from you, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do what I got to do. There's a reason why somebody's got to be the teacher in the classroom. Just like somebody's got to be a mama. Somebody got to be a daddy in the house. But here the king says, okay, and they say, establish it, sign, and rather be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. So even the king can't change it once he signs it in. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing in the decree. There's no discussion or anything else along those lines. Now, Daniel's not there. Daniel, in verse number 10, sees that it's signed. He knew it. He went into his house. And I want you to notice what Daniel does. What does he do? He opens the windows. And it's not for fresh air. There's no air conditioner or anything else like that. The Bible says his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem. He kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day. Not just when he didn't think any, okay, nobody's around me now. Okay, I'll pray now. He did it 3 times a day and gave thanks before God as he had done aforetime. It did not change his routine or his ritual. More importantly, it did not change his relationship. They can create a law in this country, and I'm not trying to sow civil disobedience, but if somebody writes a law and says you cannot read your Bible and you cannot say the name of the Lord, I'm sorry, there is a law that is above that law. And that is, I am not going to succumb to that. I'm not going to bend a knee to that. I don't necessarily know that I'll open up a window and say that, but there's going to be signs. It's like that meme that comes up. If I get really rich or hit the lottery, somebody says there'll be signs, and then they show big things that are going on. But look at this. Then these men assembled and found David praying. It's not just one of them. They get their cohort together. They get their crowd together, their entourage together, and they see him making supplication. And they came near and spake before the king. And he goes through, and he said, doesn't name Daniel, just says, hey, did you not sign this? And the king answered, yeah, I did. Then answered, and they said, okay, so now the king's stuck, and Daniel's guilty. And Daniel has no problem being guilty, but the king does. But the king knows he can't do anything. As much as he is the king, evidently he's not an absolute monarch because he can't change this law. If he signed it, this was, I guess, one of the protections to keep against that. Then the king, when he had heard these words, was sore displeased with himself. Oh, y'all back again. Y'all come in that way, yeah? The king was sore displeased with himself. What do you think's going through his mind when he's sore displeased? When he says here, sore displeased, there in verse number 13. Oops. Is it verse 13 I had? Yeah. No, sorry, verse 14. Yeah.
because he didn't think about me.
He's been bamboozled and other things. The word that's used here for displeased literally means something that has a bad smell. In other words, this stinks. All right, there are some things that that just have a stinking odor to it, and he sees now the motive behind these other princes. It's not the fact that they're doing something good for the kingdom; it's out of just sheer jealousy of a man, and probably even wondering, why did I pick these guys to be the princes? Why did I pick these guys to be the presidents? And in verse number 15, then these men assembled unto the king and said unto the king, Know, O king, that the law of the Medes and the Persians is that no decree nor statute which the king established may be changed. I'm thinking to myself, No wonder that kingdom didn't survive. if a king can't change a law or something along that, because sometimes laws, as in this one here, are not made with pure motives. They're made for ill gain or whatever it may be. And so he knows if he does it, it'll be mutiny. It may be his head rather than Daniel. So he spake unto Daniel, thy God, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. Notice who said that in verse 16. That wasn't Daniel. That was the king. The king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him in the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, thy God, whom thou servest continually. This is what blows my mind. Darius knew this by this saying this. Either he forgot it, or he is trying to remind himself, now maybe encourage himself that I'm just killed my best man. No, your God that you serve continually. Why didn't he think about this before he signed the law? He didn't have to sign the law just because they brought it forth. Again, what were they appealing to? His pride. His hey man, get me all lifted up, then that stinking odor. Oh, okay, now I know what you were doing. He says, and a stone was brought, and they laid upon the mouth of the den. The king sealed it with his own signet. Funny how when kings seal things with a stone, and God says, that signet really doesn't mean anything. Y'all know that Easter we celebrate Christ rising from the grave, right? Rising from the dead. Pilate put his seal on that too. That meant nothing. But nonetheless, with the signet of his Lord's purpose that not be changed concerning Daniel. He went to his palace, passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. So he stayed up all night worried about Daniel. And the king arose very early in the morning. You know what's interesting to me? We have no comment whatsoever, no story, no anything about Daniel in the den. It's about the king and what's going on outside the den. There's no information here. Well, Daniel said, yeah, fluppied up Simba here and got Mufasa over here. Propped my feet up on him and laid my head on the son over here or something. There's nothing said about Daniel in that den. And there's been skeptics that say, hey, it was a lion's den. There weren't any lions there. Okay. It was a den of lions, meaning there were lions in the den. It didn't say a lion's den. You could go into a lion's den and not find lions. But if you go into a den of lions, there are lions in the den. And when we see this here, the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste to the den of lions. And when he came to the den, and if there were no lions in the den, then why was he so worried about Daniel's safety? Enough said there. He cried with a lamentable voice. Verse number 20, that word lamentable. You know what that means? Pained. Crying out. Oh, please tell me you are. I think there was a time when Miss Amy's going to, I won't say hate me, but she's going to get angry at me for me reminding her of this story. We were in, I think it was the Target here in Gainesville. Nate was about 4 or 5. And we were walking around, and he's getting to the age where I'm starting, he wouldn't hold my finger or anything like that, and he's walking beside me. And I walked through the section he wanted to walk through in the toy section and stuff like that. And he stopped, and he's looking around and stuff like that. And I kind of said, all right, Nate, it's time to go. Come on. And I started to walk away, and he just looked at me, and he went back to look. And I said, Nate, let's go. And he looked at me and went back. So I walked around the corner and hid myself. And then all of a sudden, I don't call his name or anything, and all of a sudden he looks around, and I can see through the shells and everything that his big brown eyes, his little redhead. Amy's getting mad here. She's feeling sorry for him. He started to look around and goes, "Where's Dad?" And he starts walking my way. Well, I walked as I walked. I could see that he was coming. I walked behind him and came this way. He gets out there and starts looking this way, and all of a sudden he's now panicking. And he's like, "Where is Dad?" And he didn't start crying real loud or anything like that, but you could see his eyes were starting to water up, and he's looking around and everything, and then I step out, and he's like, "Oh," I said, "Son, when I tell you to come, you need to stay with me." And Amy's like, Miss Willene hates that even more, that story even more, and everything. Savannah, we never had to worry about because nobody would take her; they bring her back. But nonetheless, we're sitting here, and Daniel, this king is lamenting out because he thinks Daniel is gone. He put him in. If the argument for the skeptics who said there were no lions in them, why was the king so? Why was he crying out with such a lamentable voice here? That we see here in verse number 20. Pull up that word here real quick. And we know what the word lament, just pain, something that's afflicted. This is what kept him up all night, was Daniel going to survive. And he went to the den and he cried with that voice, and he said, O Daniel, servant of the living God. Guess who's getting glory out of all of this? God. And here's Daniel. Again, living the principle that we looked at on Sunday morning, in everything give thanks. I've seen pictures of Daniel and the lions in people's artists' pictorial representations of it and stuff. Maybe you've seen them too. There's one famous one with lions all lying around, and it's kind of dark and everything, and then Daniel's just standing there. You know, I don't know that he held his hands like this and there's a light shining down on him because it was sealed. But nonetheless, I get the artist's representation and that kind of stuff. He says, of the servant of the living God. And here's the thing. Is thy God, whom thou servest continue, able to deliver thee from the lions? Do you not think God is saying to himself, or Daniel is saying to himself, I'm ready to answer, I can answer that question. And he says in verse number 21, what does he say? Doesn't give praise to God. What does he say? O King, live forever. Now let me ask you a question. Did Daniel not give glory to God in saying that? Absolutely he did. Exactly. Again, we go back to what was said back over in verse number 4 of chapter number 6. There was no occasion of fault. He didn't say, yeah, my God's able, you sorry king, because you threw me down in here because of those outfits that you listened to. That's not, it's respectful. It's in a tone of which you are the king. Daniel recognizes the fact that he is the king over him, that he is to serve him. There's verses in New Testament for that too. What are we supposed to do with the authorities? Submit. Submit to them that have the rule over you. And that. And when we see here, he says, my God has sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. Here's Daniel's testimony of what's going on in here. And shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me, for as much as before him innocency was found in me. Looking at just innocence was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. I didn't blaspheme your name when I was down here. Anything else along those lines? I've done nothing to do. There is nothing governmental-wise, civil-wise that I've done. Then the king was exceeding glad for him and commanded they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him because he believed in his God. Okay, I go back to the skeptics. I'm going to come back and I'm going to really drive this one in home tonight. Because if there were no lions in that den, then the king would not have been as worried as he was. But notice what happens now. Then the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions. Them, their children, and their wives, and the lions had mastery of them. Where'd the lions come from? There were no lions in the den, right? It's just a lion's den? No, it was a den of lions. There were lions in there. And break all their bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the den. A little bit different wording, before they ever came to the bottom of the den. I go back to my cartoon days. I grew up on Looney Tunes. Sorry. Saturday mornings, Looney Tunes, that's when they were. You've seen the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. It wasn't really my favorite, but as I got older, and as I get older, I understand Wile E. Coyote a little bit more. But have you ever seen when it wasn't Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, it was Wile E. Coyote and the dog, Sam. When they would go clock in and everything else along those lines and that kind of stuff. And that the dogs were always trying to, whatever. There was just one dog that was over everybody. And I remember one cartoon where the coyote falls and he's not hitting the ground. He's bouncing up and down because the dogs are just nipping at him and stuff like that. That's what verse 24 is saying. Before they ever hit the ground, these lions, they're not drugged. Daniel didn't go down in there with an apothecary or anything like that and drug them or something along those lines. Daniel said in verse number 24, God sent his angel, just one, just one angel, and shut the lions' mouths. Not lion, apostrophe S, lions, apostrophe, meaning plural. So many, in fact, that not only were the men that accused him, we don't know, you go back and look, I don't want to say it was 120 presidents or the 120 of those people, but there's more than one, along with their families. And before they are, as they are cast into this den, before they ever hit the ground, they're torn in pieces. The ferocity, or the ferocity, not veracity. The ferocity, the viciousness, and the just absolute. I can see those lines. I can just. I'm trying. This is just me trying to not make light of it. The angel shuts their mouths, almost like puts a muzzle on a dog. Our little dog tonight. We got home. I was tired. I wanted to sit down for a minute. Miss Amy got home. She goes, "I'm going to take a power nap for a second." She's not feeding Coco. You've kept Coco. When it's time to eat, what does she do? She goes to him. She came up. I sat down. I just wanted to sit back and put my head back just for a minute. She comes up, puts both paws on my chest, stands her head above me, and just starts doing this. I said, "Dog, not now." And then she kind of sat down a little bit, and then she got right in got this far from my face, just doing all that. "I'm hungry. I want to eat." I said, "I'm not feeding you right now. It's only 5:30, 6 o'clock. We'll try to get you as close as we can to that." And for 30, she's trying to take a power nap, and dog's going crazy. Dog's running all over the place, everything. I can't imagine these lions. They're seeing Daniel there, and they know that's food. Why would they keep, this wasn't a zoo. Why were they keeping a den of lions? There's some type of capital punishment, maybe probably one of many forms. Okay, they had a fiery furnace for a reason, and it wasn't maybe to burn some trash, but it was also to deal with some people that weren't behaving and that kind of stuff that we saw earlier in the book of Daniel. And here, these den of lions, it's for capital punishment, and they're in there, and they know what food is. Maybe they if they're put in there, Daniel's in there all night, and I can just see that angel. The Bible said, "Look, they sent his angel and has shut the lions' mouths." I don't know what he did. If he just said it or just did the and put the muzzle on their mouth. But when Daniel's out, the muzzle's removed. And that angel's no longer there to keep those lions' mouths shut. And they are so fierce that before those people, as it said there, that the lions had mastery of them. What does that mean, have mastery of them? Huh? A little bit, yeah. You look there in verse number 24, they overpowered them. Now you say, that's not hard for a lion to overpower anybody. You ever seen the size of a lion? We're not talking about a house cat, a fat house cat. We're not talking about Garfield, all right? And break all their bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the den. If there's 4 or 5 people, it said here that them and their children and their wives. I'm thinking to myself, if I'm one of those kids and those wives, like, "Dad, what'd you do?" And before it ever is there, they ever hit the ground, they're dead. I mean, and what a vicious death that they succumb to. Then King Darius wrote unto all the people, nations, and languages that dwell on the earth, "Peace be multiplied unto you, and make a decree." Here's a new one, "that in every dominion of my kingdom," guess who's going to get glory now? "Men tremble and fear before" who? Not Daniel, but who? His God. Before the God of Daniel, for he is who? The living God. Isn't that something similar to what Nebuchadnezzar said? "And steadfast forever in his kingdom, that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and earth. Who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions? So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian." Then we get to the visions. Okay? Daniel never through his entire life of what we have in the first 6 chapters changed, or never is the testimony of Daniel changed. Wow. I don't even know that I can say that for myself for the last 5 years, much less a lifetime. Maybe even 5 months, 5 days. But here is a man who, and we went back to why Daniel? Why did Jesus quote Daniel saying, "When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet"? Well, yeah, it's in Daniel chapter 9. But why did God use Daniel to be that man? We go back to Daniel purposed in his heart. Daniel went through some trials where he was put on trial and for doing nothing but serving God. And of course, listen, God is going to honor those who honor him. He will lift up those who humble himself before him. You want to lift yourself up? That's fine. God will bring you low. That's a biblical principle. Old Testament, New Testament, do what you want to say with it. It's a Bible principle. That's something you and I still need today. Our testimony, I hope my testimony is going to be one where he'll do, they save a situation. He's not going to do that. I would hope that would be my testimony. I'll close with this. Olivia Satkowski, well, not Satkowski anymore. She played volleyball for me. Came to Katie and all them others. Coached Olivia a different way than how I ended my coach. That was definitely not a consistent thing. And she wanted to come help coach. She came in one day into practice. She was going to have the middle schoolers and stuff like that. And I'm in there. The older girls are on one end, the younger girls are on one end. It's during the summer practice. And she walks in, and she's just looking around, and she's doing this. And I was like, you okay? She goes, what's going on? I said, we're practicing. She goes, what do you mean? She looked at me, she goes, well, you're different. I said, yeah, I had to, Olivia. I had to change. I can't coach. I wish I would not have coached the way that I did in some instances. And she goes, well, she just looked at me kind of funny. She says, I don't recognize you. So, like, that's bad. Hopefully, as a dad, my son and my daughter know who I am. Hopefully, as a husband, my wife knows who I am. Hopefully, as a friend and a pastor, whatever other relation, as a teacher, my students know who I am. Some of them have some things that I don't give pop quizzes or anything else like that. Sometimes I'll say check their knowledge in that, but it's not necessarily for a grade. And there's some things that other teachers do that they assume all teachers do. And when they say that, I'm just like, do you really think I would do that? Is that what you think of me as a teacher? And they say, no, you wouldn't do that, but they do. It's like, I'm not worried about what they do. What do you think I would do? And they said, well, you wouldn't do that. It's like, good. Now get out your paper, let's take a test. Not just kidding. Just messing with their minds and stuff like that. But the testimony we ought to have as a Christian ought to be like Daniel here. That he was faithful, whether it be 80 or 18, 28, 38, whatever his age was when he first came. Probably somewhere between 10 to 17 years old when he first got there. Just speculate. But at 80 years old, he's still got that test. At 80 years old, he is still, not because he's taken a test and he's better than everybody else, but because he has distinguished himself because of his faith in his God. Not the world, not the government, not placating to the new power that has come in or anything like that. He is just being who he is. And if it means it costs him something, then it costs him something. You going to say something? Absolutely. Yeah. And you think about we're talking about Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, now the Medes and the Persians. They're ruling the known world at that time. Greece isn't on the scene yet. Rome is not on the scene yet. And this is a known power of the Western world, at least anyway. Speculation, I'll leave the Eastern world out, but if it says over the world, it's over the world, but we'll leave that alone. And we see that just one. And you know what? That's all it takes. It's just one. Someone made this statement a long time ago, and it's always stuck in my mind. What it is yet to be seen what one person can do, or what a person can do totally sold out to God. I think we could see that with Daniel. But that's a biblical example. What about today? We need those examples today. We talked about that. Following Jesus, that he is that leader because he is the author and finisher of our faith, because he is that example. He did it. Our young people need examples. Our adults need examples to follow, and those types of things. So we're going to start getting a little bit more into those visions and stuff like that. But I think it's pertinent to know the man that we're looking at. It's just not a random person that God just said, boom, here it is. There's a reason why God used Daniel in the way that he did, and that the things that he's going to share for later times. Continue to pray for Adam. Miss Amy's got her surgery tomorrow. We'll post an update on GroupMe about Adam. I'll go by, Lord willing, I'm going to go by and see him tomorrow. Got everything ready for Sunday, Miss Heather. All good there. So other than that, what's that? Yes, Ben. And I didn't catch the full line of that text. Has he gotten better, or was he doing better?
I think he was doing pretty
Okay, yeah, I was in the middle of 15 different things when my phone started blowing up on that and my family. They thought they were being cute and funny, and I grade my tests with my phone. There's things that it scans images, and I can grade test that fast while I'm sitting here and my phone's blowing up with something, whatever they're doing on their Christmas stuff and everything. I'm like, I was like, can y'all please, hold off for about 30 minutes? I'm trying to grade quizzes so I can get these back in these kids' hands so they got them for their test tomorrow. And it's just blowing up, and they're just making funnies and stuff like that. Not Mary or Chad and all them, not that. But it was just the timing. I was like, guys, can we pause on this for a second? Literally trying to use my phone for work. But anywho, so everything's been going good with Ben?
Yeah, they were.
I think he had pneumonia, didn't he? Is that what they said? Double pneumonia?
He has MS, he's
Right.
already.
Yeah, he's already pretty much neck down, she said, right?
Well, when he gets sick, when he runs a fever.
Yeah, and bless his heart, his wife, she's got to take care of him and everything. And
She's a nurse.
Yeah.
So, but it sounded like he was stable, and they were trying to figure out, what to do, next steps for him to be able to go home in the next day or two.
okay, yeah, so just keep praying for Ben. And his wife's name? Michaela. All right, and then Adam should be doing better because he's out of ICU. He's in another room, and like I said, I'll post tomorrow on anything going on there, but just keep those prayers. All right, may God bless you. Appreciate you coming tonight.